Okay, so we're going to kick into Unit 2 here, where we are going to look at the establishment of the American Empire and a rather unusual time where progressive ideas, the concept of the building of empire called imperialism, and sort of a bizarre, really, um, really palpable over the top optimism kind of reigned over all of America. And how this combination of factors led to the establishment of America as a genuine world power, not just merely an industrial and business power economically, but politically and militarily a world power. So the entrance into this sort of brave new world that we're looking at, oddly enough, doesn't even happen in the United States for us to some degree. We're going to start at this point here. The 1889 Paris Exposition Universelle, the Paris World's Fair, celebrated to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the French Revolution, which is kind of a bizarre one, if you ask me. But a little bit of a background here with this one. Um, Ever since the 1876 World Expo, there had been three other expos: one in London, one in Vienna, Austria, and one in Sydney, Australia. They had failed to some degree or another. The Vienna one was massive, but so poorly orchestrated, it really didn't sit well with people. Sydney was a weird choice because Australia was basically a penal colony for England. Almost nobody went to that one, and I really don't know what they were thinking behind this. But the French decided to host their own expo. And just like the Philadelphia World's Fair was in honor of America's Revolution, this one was going to be in honor of France's Revolution. I would like to point out that at no point in time did America have its revolution publicly whacking people with a giant guillotine to the tunes of tens of thousands of people in public execution, not to mention all the other horrifying things that the French Revolution did. In fact, this sort of celebration of that particular event really didn't sit well with a lot of the attendees, but particularly England, while not thrilled about it, kind of felt that they had to be there, otherwise it would look bad for them. Now, there were kind of three basic goals of this expo for the French. Number one, it was going to be the biggest, most lavish thing ever done to prove that France was just the best country ever. Number two, it was going to directly sort of show up all the other European countries and specifically the United States. And number three, it was going to turn a profit and be successful. So if you want to look at it this way, the Paris Expo in 1889 is a direct response to the 1876 World Expo. And the French attitude was whatever the Americans did, we can do bigger and better, and we will make money at it because we are France and people love us and, we are France. And there are two real highlights, I think, to look at here. Number one, the first is the Palace of Machinery, a simply gorgeous iron and glass structure that occupied over 20 acres of downtown Paris. It was so large that on the inside there was a tram system designed to take spectators over the top of the exhibits in the hall so that they could see everything from a bird's eye view rather than having to rely on walking around to take a look at it. The most significant contribution, however, was the unveiling of the Eiffel Tower in all of its magnificence. The largest man-made structure in history, almost 1,000 feet high. And when you were at the fair, you had to walk underneath the tower and get a feel for how big this thing truly is. And again, all wrought iron. This was actually a sort of a subtext of the Ferris World Expo. This sort of shot taken directly at at Germany and the United States, that yes, Germany and the US could outproduce France in steel and iron. But while the US and Germany could produce more and, make stuff like, trains and things like that, only the French could take industrial iron and make art out of it. And really, to be perfectly frank, looking at this, that's what this is. It's art. These buildings are stunningly gorgeous. the whole design of this. It's just iron and glass. And this is magnificent. And the ironic part was is that the French themselves hated the Eiffel Tower. They thought it was hideous. One French critic described it as a wart on the face of the most beautiful woman in the world. You're not going to look at her beauty, you're going to focus on the wart. They really thought this until people started showing up, and then everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, this is the coolest thing ever!" And the French are like, "Well, of course it is, because we built it, you silly other people. No, you're not us. You wish you were. Everyone wishes you were." The expo was set up to run for its 6 months and accommodate approximately 6.5 million visitors, or sorry, 5.5 million visitors, 4.5 million visitors a month, 28 million people. Me and math, not so much. What they got was closer to 6 million visitors a month. 36 countries altogether showed up, and it was a phenomenal success for the French. They really proved that they were superior to everybody in terms of what they were able to pull off at stage. Now, the issue of France versus America and how this sort of leads us into the 1890s and to become this world power. Really, America had no one to blame but for ourselves as to why we looked bad. This was the American display at the Paris World Expo. This is a tent city here because America's great contribution to the 1889 World Expo was Buffalo Bill's Wild West extravaganza. Twice a day, you can see real cowboys and Indians chasing each other, shooting each other, running around, capturing banditos, fighting off, each other, celebrating the glory of the Wild West. You could literally see Sitting Bull, the man that everybody blamed for the death of George Armstrong Custer. And the highlight of the show, the individual herself, little old sure shot, Annie Oakley, pretty girl with a gun. You put Annie in a blindfold, she'll still shoot the gun and hit things. You throw stuff in the air, she'll still shoot it. You put her on a horse, she still shoots from the horse. You can spin her in a circle, put her on backwards, and have her look through a mirror, and she'll shoot backward. What this really just sort of highlighted was that when you wanted culture, you went to France. When you wanted achievement, you went to France. When you wanted barbarians, you went to America, where even the women were shooting guns. Now, that's not to say that America didn't try. I mean, the thing is that the basic formula for every World's Fair since Philadelphia had been the U.S. shows up with the latest Thomas Edison invention. We show off the invention. Everybody's like, ooh, that's so amazing. Tom, how did you do it? That's incredible. Tom, you're the best. And Tom would be like, yeah, I know who I am. In this case, even Edison's amazing new invention, the phonograph, which could record and rebroadcast and transmit sound, wasn't enough to overcome how amazingly cool what the French did was. This hit America so hard that we were determined to regain the pride that we had after the 1876 World Expo. People walked away from the French Expo saying that nothing in human history would ever again compare to this. No one would be able to do anything bigger or better or more elaborate. And maybe more specifically, nothing could surprise them anymore after what the French did and the Eiffel Tower. And artistically, nothing would be able to rival the French. Well, America was not going to put up with this, so Congress petitioned and got permission to host the 1892 World's Fair in celebration of the 400th anniversary of Columbus's arrival in America. But like the last fair, Congress wasn't going to pay for it. Unlike the last fair, which was nearly a decade in the planning, this one, the United States has 3 years to figure out how to do better than Paris and what to do something more amazing than the Eiffel Tower. And we'll talk about this tomorrow. Peace and love.